Good morning, everyone. Good day. Good afternoon. Good evening for those who are watching this in the evening. Now we're continuing where we left off yesterday. We finished the first mimer, very sort of Kabbalistic, but very interesting. The first discourse talked about what is this idea of the cave of Machpelah double and what it means spiritually. The idea of double is the two letters of Hey in God's name. God's is Yud and then Hey and then Vav and then Hey. And that now we only get, in this world, we only get the last Hey of God's name. That's like a double, a copy, if you want to call it a cheap imitation of the first Hey, God's name. And that's the whole idea of the fathers, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and their wives. They're all buried in this second level. This is the revelation of godliness, which is to everyone on the weekdays, which is like almost zero. Almost totally zero. And in most cases, it is zero. There's no, people don't feel God. They don't feel the creation. That's this double of the Machpelah, of the second Hey of God's name. But it says, Yagalotame, the Bisrates, they'll be revealed the reason for these 12 loaves of bread in the Holy Temple. It's the 12 loaves of bread that represents the sustenance of all mankind. And people, if you learn, you can look at in the past classes that we had, like the class we're doing in the nighttime. There's a class called Kuntras Umayan. Kuntras Umayan. That's what it's called. And it talks about how making a living is one of the best proofs that God does not exist. That if you don't work, you don't get fed. So you have to do it on your own. So we thought that God is the big provider. And says the Rebbe, that's the way that God made the world, that it would seem like that. That it would seem that proved positive that you have to do the work. And so your livelihood and your life and everything comes from you. But it's really not so. It really comes from God, but it's really concealed. You can't blame people for, idolatry and worshiping other things, because God made the world that it seems that that's the way to go. You can't believe these, the billions of Catholics and Protestants and everything, that it's idolatry. But you can't blame them, because that's the way God made the world. It's very, very concealed. But the fact is it is concealed. And that's the second letter, Hey, of God's name. And the Jews are here, especially Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're buried in this place, Mar the Machpelah, to show the secret of it. The secret. And that's this first Hey that's going to be revealed. And that's the whole idea of the coming of the Moshiach, that the world will be filled with awareness that we're being created, and that there really is a creator, and that the creator is behind us, and that the creator wants us to be partners with him. He wants us to make this world into a vessel for godliness. That's the first Mara that we learned. The secret of the 12 loaves of bread in the altar. Okay, now we're going to take another one. Let's learn this. Now this, in a way, is talking about the importance of the Torah, and especially what they call the oral Torah, the Talmud, the Mishnah, the explanations of the written Torah. Now, as we said before, a lot of times, at Mount Sinai, God gave the Jews the written Torah. The written Torah. And Moses received on Mount Sinai, he received the explanations, a lot of the explanations, but not all the explanations. There's a lot of things that Moses received, and they were concealed. Just take an example, he received the whole Torah, so he received also what was going to happen after the giving of the Torah. It was all written there. So, why was he disappointed that the Jews didn't want to go into Egypt and into Israel? It's written in the Torah. He could have just looked in the Torah and saw. Right? And why was he disappointed when the Jews were complaining about the water? They didn't have any man, he had to strike the rock. It's written in the Torah. So obviously there were things that were written in the Torah that Moses got that had to be explained. The letters were jumbled up or whatever you can explain it, but nevertheless they had to be explained. And they had to be explained in later generations. And that's the whole purpose of the Talmud and the Mishnah. These teachings that Moses had were passed down from generation to generation, and the rabbis discussed this for a long time until the destruction of the Second Temple, and then it had to be written down. Came Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and he wrote down the Mishnah. Rabbi Chia, he wrote down the Rabbi Yochanan, wrote down the Talmud Yerushalmi, and Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Ushia, they wrote down the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud. And this was like in the course of a few hundred years after the temple was destroyed. And this is the Talmud that we learn, that all the yeshivas in the world, they sit and they learn Talmud all day, and they learn, the ideas of the Torah. So the Mishnah, and that's the Mishnah and the Breita in general, it's called. Mishnahs were very terse, precise, verbal formulas of explaining the Torah, not necessarily laws yet. Just very, if you want to call it, almost codes that tell you that there is such a subject, there is such a law, and what exactly the law is, how it comes out, not necessarily does the Mishnah tell you. And then there were Mishnahs that weren't included, and that was called the Breita. And Breita, that's already usually hinting at things that are more external, more relevant to law. And then afterwards came that was all the Tanaim. And then afterwards, the Tana. And then afterwards, like whatever, 100 years later, 200 years later, there came the Amoraim. The Amoraim. And these were like holy people. They had the power to raise the dead, especially the Tanaim. And these are all these people that the Gentiles called the Pharisees. The Pharisees, the evil Pharisees, God forbid. These were holy people that each one of them had the power to do what their so-called God did, to raise the dead and to etc. and do all sorts of miracles. They all had this power, but they didn't make a show off, and they certainly didn't make a new religion of it. Anyway, that's the Mishnah and the Breita. The Mishnah and the Breita, they were written by tremendously holy and devoted people, devoted totally to the truth. Okay, but still, and why was it? Why is the Torah even here? Why is it here? So the answer is to fix up the world. The Torah is not here to get us into heaven. The purpose of Judaism is not to get into heaven, even though that might be a side benefit. It's like a doctor, his main purpose should be to heal people. A lawyer his main purpose is to find what is justice. There are side benefits. You make a good living. But a genuine doctor, a genuine politician, he's there to find the truth, to help the people, to help others, and not to think about himself. That's called genuine. And so it is. The Judaism is no exception. The purpose of Judaism is to fix up the world, not for the Jews. It's not there for the Jews. It's for the whole world. And of course, the side benefit is that it helps us also. But that's a side benefit. How do I know that? From Abraham. If Abraham would have taken his son to sacrifice him, that would have been total destruction for Abraham. He would have gotten absolutely no benefit from sacrificing his son on the altar. Absolutely no. He wouldn't have proven any point. Anybody who believed in him would have left him. Abraham, they would have said, this man's a maniac. He's killing his own son. So Abraham had absolutely nothing to gain, not in this world, and certainly not in the world to come. I mean, if Abraham, the reason that Abraham was going to kill his son, was for his own self to go to heaven. I mean, that's like a super egotist. Who would kill their own son for their own benefit, even if it's a spiritual benefit? That's like really, mad. That would really drive everybody away. I think. I don't know. Who knows? In any case, it doesn't. God did not say, "Kill your son, you're going to go to heaven." The purpose of Judaism is not going to heaven or for any purpose, personal benefit in any way. That's not the purpose. Like I say, it could be a side. It's a side, a side offshoot that you get. But the main thing is to fix up the world. So that's the whole idea of the Torah. God gave the Torah in the world in order to make the world a perfect place. That's the idea of the Torah. So we can also parenthetically see all those people who say you don't need the Torah anymore, and you don't need all these movements in Judaism, you don't have the Torah, how destructive and self-destructive this is. So the Torah is necessary. Okay, even though you look at the Torah, you can't exactly see how it is that this benefits the world. I mean, how is this going to benefit the world? Why? Because everybody has the totally wrong idea of what it means to benefit the world. Right? I mean, it just if you look at it in a simple way, I think if you're talking about popularity nowadays, I think that the Nazis are much more popular than the Jews are. Not too many people hate the Nazis today. A lot of people hate the Jews. And the Nazis came just to destroy everything. I mean, they just killed 50 million innocent people. Let's not talk about the Jews that they killed. They just killed, how many Russians did they kill? Like 27 million for absolutely no reason. And nevertheless, nobody hates the Germans. Even the Russians don't hate the Germans, but the Russians hate the Jews. There's a lot of anti-Semitism. The English hate the Jews. They hate the Nazis. They don't. Live and let live. So the purpose of the Jews is supposed to be to benefit the whole entire world, to bring blessing to the world. What was the purpose of the Nazis? In no way to benefit the world, even though maybe that's what he told everybody, So anyway, the purpose of the Jews and the purpose of the Torah is to benefit the whole entire world. So now let's explain this a little bit. Okay, where did this begin? It says, "Vayetze Yitzchak," that Yitzchak went out, l'soach basada, to speak in the field. And they say that that Yitzchak went out in the middle of the day, that he established the prayer of Mincha, the middle. We religious Jews, we pray 3 times a day, once in the morning, and once in the afternoon, and once in the evening. And so it says that Abraham, he established the morning prayer. And then Yitzchak, he established the afternoon prayer. And Yaakov, he established the evening prayer by Yivga b'makom. It says when he went to we'll get to that. So it says Yitzchak also went out into the field to pray. Now, what did he have to go into a field for? He could have prayed anywhere he wants to. I mean, God is everywhere. What does he have to go out into a field? Now, that a field is a little bit dangerous. You go out into a field, there could be all sorts of wild animals out there, snakes, bears, lions. He went out into a field to pray. So it says, now everything in the Torah is inside of us, and everything in the Torah has at least 4 levels of meaning. The simple meaning is one of them, and a homiletic meaning, etc. But there's also a mystical, I want to call it mystical, a hidden meaning, spiritual, Kabbalistic. And then deeper than all of it is the Hasidic meaning. The Kabbalistic meaning sort of takes you out of the world, about the upper world. And Hasidic takes these upper worlds and makes it practical. It brings it in so that we'll have more love and fear and faith in God, and we'll do the commandments with more meaning and enthusiasm. Okay, here we go. So Yitzchak went out to Suach. Suach means to speak in the field, to speak to God. Leviticus said, let's explain this. Here, there's Mishnah and Breita. There's what's called the Mishnah, and then there's the Breita. Mishnah are these short laws, which were arranged after the temple was destroyed by a person called Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. He arranged all the Mishnah. And then there's Breita. Breita are all these a little bit longer, usually laws, and they're usually more explaining than the Mishnah, but they're not included in the Mishnahs. They're not included in the Mishnah. Breita, a lot of times it explains the Mishnah. The Mishnah is the klal. The Mishnah is the general, like the point, like the seed. And the Braita is the prat. The Braita gets into all the details, like the seed grows up into a tree, and the tree has in it, a trunk, and it has the branches, and it has leaves, and it has the fruits, and the fruits have seeds in them, the nourishment. So that's all the details. So it says that the Braita is like all the details that come out from the Mishnah, which the Mishnah is the generality, right? Like I said, that's the Mishnah, that's the seed. And from the seed, that's just one generality. And from it comes all these details, which are, like the tree is same thing a human being, right? There's a seed, an egg, and from that comes a human being with eyes and nose and a personality. So the Mishnah is like the seed, and the Braita is already an expansion of that, all the details. It says that in the seed contains everything that's going to be in the details, and the details are everything that's in the seed. In other words, the details contain everything, all the potential that's in the seed is revealed in our case, the tree, right? So all these details are concealed inside of the seed in a concealed way. But that's it. That's all there is. All that there is in the seed is revealed in all these details. Ein b'chlal, there's nothing in the seed except what you see in the details. In other words, the Braita reveals everything that's in the Mishnah. At first glance, you say the Braita, these explanations of the Mishnah, lamata mina Mishnah is below the Mishnah. Because it comes down more into the physical world, right? The Mishnah is just like a very, very tense, very, economical, verbal message. And not always is the law like the Mishnah. Sometimes it just tells you that there is a topic like this, and that the law is not like the Mishnah. Sometimes it's not like the Mishnah. And the Braita comes out sometimes and explains it. So the Braita you think was lower than the Mishnah. Right? Like you have a professor in university and he explains everything, and then you have to go out into the real world and to use the principles that the professor told you. So the professor is greater, right? That you think, that's what you think. He gives the generalities, and now you have to get your hands dirty in the world. The same thing, the Mishnah, that's the generality, and the details, that's already a lower level. But the truth is, Shabraita Gavoa Yoter. The truth is that the lower the Torah comes into the world, the higher it is. The Sof Maise b'machshava techila, that the final deed, that was what was in the thought first. Okay, so what are we saying here? God gave the Torah, and he gave it in a very, very capsulated way that the words of the Torah you can't understand on your own. I mean, that's the problem. You can't understand on your own and get it totally wrong. Right? If you try to explain the Torah on your own, with your own explanation, that almost for sure you're going to get the whole thing wrong. What is the 10 Commandments? Don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery. Right? What does it mean? Don't kill bacteria. What are you not supposed to kill? Lo tin of. What does tin of mean? What does it mean? What does the word tin of mean? Right? What's it supposed to include? Lo tignov. Who would ever dream that the prohibition in the 10 Commandments for not to steal is talking about kidnapping? The prohibition of stealing money is another place in the Torah. Al tignovu. Who would think about that? So you have to have an explanation. But you might think that the source, that's pristine and pure. And when it comes into the world, that's already it's compromised already. It's not the same purity. It says the Rebbe, it's not so. The fact of the matter is the final deed, that's the most important thing. The closer the Torah comes to action in the world, the higher it is. Right? The more hands-on the Torah is, the higher is the source. What's an example? I'll give you an example. You want to build, let's say, a building, right? So what do you have to? You go you get architects, and you have to get designers. You have to get the architects. They have to know, certain principles of physics and whatever it is the laws. Also laws of architecture. It's very, very complicated. And there is also all sorts of permissions you have to get. Is it going to disturb people? Is it going to be too high? Going to be too low? And all these requires, in order to build the building, you have to have experts. You hire a building company, the builders, the foreman of the building, they have to know what they're doing. The workers, they have to have a certain degree of expertise. So what's the main thing? The architects, the ideas, the builders. No, the main thing is the finished bricks building, the actual finished building. The building doesn't have any sense in it at all. The building is just a big bunch of stones and things like that, and all the ideas that went into it. That's the main thing, right? It says, yeah, but it's not the main thing. The main thing is the finished product, with all the wisdom and all the the depth and all of the genius that comes into making it. When you have to be a genius architect with new ideas and new angles and new principles of balance and things like this, right? Those are all wonderful, but the main thing is the finished product. The finished product, which even in like an otter or something, one of these things in the water, what is it? An otter, he can build something. He build the finished product. Good, too. A skyscraper is much more complicated, but the fact is, the main thing is the finished product. So it is also in Judaism. The Torah is amazing. The will and the wisdom of God. The explanation of the Torah. What's not to talk about? But that's a little bit lower. And when it finally gets down to the explanations, in the Breita, and then finally even lower it comes into the Shulchan Aruch. So that's already, that's already mundane. It's not so holy anymore. Says the Rebbe, it's not so. The fact is, the main thing is the end. Hine, HaTorah, the Torah, Nishtal Shalo, came down below. Afilu, B'davar Sheker, even into lies. Kamo, Zeh Omar Ani Matzatia. That's how the Talmud, the Mishnah also, in Baba Matzia, starts off, the two people that are grabbing onto a talit, and one says, I found it, and the other found it, and one of them is lying. What are you supposed to do? So the Holy Torah is dealing with liars. That's what it is. It's just a general law. Anyone who lies gets their tongue cut out. That's it. No, it's not what it says. If a person is lying, we have to analyze this. How do you know he's lying? What's the implications of his lie? Maybe he's only half lying. Maybe he's not sure. Maybe he made a mistake. Maybe the other guy is really the liar. But the Torah analyzes it, pages and pages and pages of analysis of a lie. Lies and cheating and murder and rape. And all the Torah analyzes this very, very exactly. Why? Ulafia Nira, it seems, this is Yerida Lamata mode. This is very, very low. Right? Just leave it in the Torah. Don't lie. That's all. Don't lie. Anyone who lies gets punished. That's all. You don't have to go into all these details. It says, no, the Torah goes into all these details. Why does it have to go into details? Why? Like in a business or something, the boss gives an order, and the people, they have to carry it out. So the people, they're less, like the architect, he gives the orders how to build it, he makes the plans, and then he sits down and his hands are clean. The architect is the main guy, right? Says, no, the workers are more important. Without the workers, of course, the workers have to know what to do. But the main purpose as an architect is that there has to be workers. The main purpose there has to be the workers, and so that they have to have supplies. And the main purpose of the supplies, there should be a finished building. So the end product, that's the main thing. So that's the whole idea of the Torah. The Torah is like the architect and the words of the Torah, but the main thing is how it comes down into actual action. Mikol makom, and the lower that it comes, coming down before action, in a way, the higher it is. Mikol makom hu gavoa, what comes down lower in the Torah, closer to action, is higher. Kisov Maiseb, because the final deed, that's what was in the thought. Begin, right? You build a skyscraper. What was the highest thing in the skyscraper? The first thing was the idea, the whatever the manager, the owner had. That was in his first mind. That was in his mind first. Like it says, if you have like a pipe, whatever goes in first comes out last. right? You have a pipe that's closed at one end, and you put two marbles in. First of all, you put a white marble, and then you put a black marble, right? So the black marble is last, but that comes out first. So Okamo Ha'adam. Yeah. Kamo Adam, like a person, Shahu, Sof Kal and Ibrahim, that he is the end of all creation. Who, Bamaila Al Kulam, he's higher than everything else. Why? He came out last, but if he came out last, it's a sign that he went in first, right? So you put in a black marble and a white marble, and then when you pour them out, so the white marble comes out first, that's higher. Says, no, the black marble that was the first thing, but it comes out last. It comes out last, that shows that it was really the first. The same thing, the finished product, the building that comes out from that shows that was the first thing that rose up in the mind of the owner, the builder, whoever it was. The same thing with the Torah. What rose up in God's mind first was the lowest things, the final action, and what brought the actual deed. So what comes down lower is higher than everything. Hakol nivra ba'avura. In fact, everything was just created for it. Man was the last thing to be created, and everything was made before. Just like we have the example, the skyscraper. All the things that came to architect was only for the finished product. Same thing. Man was the finished product. He was the end. So everything, he was really in God's thought first. Everything was created for him. Therefore, the whole entire world is found inside of one person. The horos to indicate hakol, that everything nivra ba'avuro, that everything was created for one man. All the other animals were created in their hosts, and man was created alone, to show that everything was created for man. Because the whole thing of man is what he does in the physical world. That's what the rabbis say. It's better to do good deeds in this world, even one moment, than to receive the whole entirety of the world to come. The physical is better than the spiritual. This mundane world is better than going to heaven. That's why in the whole 5 books of Moses, we Jews believe in heaven. We believe in heaven and we believe in hell. But in the whole 5 books of Moses, it's not mentioned because it's very, of tremendous secondary importance. In the future world, right? It's like doctors that go to school and then they keep stressing to them, right? Once in a while, you're gonna make a good living. You could get up to $2-3 million a year. They don't say that in medical school, as far as I know. Maybe nowadays they do. Who knows what's going on? But it's supposed to be in medical school. I don't know if they do this either, but it's supposed to be to heal people. The importance of life, the importance of healing, the importance. So the same thing, Judaism doesn't keep stressing you're going to get a big profit out of this business. You're going to go to heaven. You're going to get. It's not stressed. But in the future, how can it be that one moment in this world is better than the future world after a person dies, going to heaven? You know how much pleasure there is in going to heaven? I have absolutely no idea. It says that one moment in heaven is like 70 years of all the pleasures of this world wrapped up together. Intense pleasure, what people won't do for drugs, for power, for success, for pleasure, for who knows what. The people do anything, right? They go make wars, they do everything. And it says that going to heaven is one moment there is like all the pleasures of this world, 70 years. It says in heaven, tzaddikim yoshvim, it says that the righteous, they sit up there and there's lights of God. And this is only, so to speak, the backside of God. That's what you get in heaven. Like it says, like God said to Moses after the Jews sinned with the golden calf. So Moses said, please show me something to bring forgiveness. And God said, okay, I'm going to put you up in this mountain, in the cleft of a mountain, and I'm going to pass by, and you're going to see my backside. My acharai, or panai lo yaru. This is the pleasure of heaven. Any sort of pleasure that a person can possibly get, hu bechinas acharayim, is just so to speak, the backside of God. a very dimmed down, like you look at somebody from the back, it's very hard to tell who he is. Sometimes you can tell a little bit, but not upanai, but my face, it's not impossible to grasp. Because a person cannot see me and live, and they say it means a person cannot see me, v'chai, and also angels called the Chayas HaKodesh, they also can't see me. Alder says similarly, Begil in Gan Eden, the revelation that's up in heaven. Hurak Bechina Ziv, it's just a ray of godliness, Aura, and like a, how do you say, a glimpse, like a picture of God. It's not real, pure godliness. What we just finished saying, that all the pleasures in this world are nothing like one moment of the pleasure in the world to come. But who's getting the pleasure? I'm getting the pleasure, right? If I'm lucky, I'm a big tzaddik, I go up to heaven, I get the pleasure. But it's that pleasure that I can possibly get. How much pleasure can I get, right? So it says a million times more than I think, but it's still a number. It's a million. And therefore, therefore, it's better one moment in this world doing God's will physically in this world than the heavens. Why? Because in the upper worlds, I get pleasure. And the pleasure that I can get is like a little ray, even though it's very intense. It's what do we say, a million times more than the pleasure of this world? But nevertheless, it's better to be in this world, because in this world, I give God pleasure. That's why God put me here. God has a will, right? He put me here. He wants me to be here. So if he has a will, he also has pleasure. When I do what God wants, that gives God pleasure. It doesn't make any sense, but nothing makes sense if you think about it. But that's the purpose of the Torah, that we can give the creator of the universe, Shehu, Amaisa, Atzma, that the deed, without any pleasure, without any understanding. This is better in this world. It's better, Mikol Chai Olam Haba, than all of the life of the world to come. The Sof Maisa, because the end deed, the Machshava Techila, that was what was in God's mind first. So when you do what God wants in this world, that's the whole purpose why he created the heavens, and why he created the stars and the constellations and the powers and the angels and all this. He created all this just so that me and you would be here in this world and do a simple thing that God wants. This is especially for the Jews. This is especially for the Jews. That's why he chose the Jews to do this. I mean, listen, just look at the non-Jews. All the non-Jews are free to make any religions they want. There's some non-Jews that are amazing, incredible geniuses. And there are non-Jews that are tremendously spiritual people. None of them came up with this idea that God gave the Torah on Mount Sinai so that we would know what to do and give God pleasure. Huh? This is Gamken, also the whole idea of the Mishnah and the Braita. The Mishnah, this is the general, this is like the seed, the generality. Like for instance, 4 tzitzis, makvos, you have to have 4 tzitzis. Tzitzis are the strands at the corners of the garments. You have to have 4. If there's only 3, you can't, that's not the commandment. And also a sukkah, which is too high, higher than 20, higher than 20 amas, what it says, it's a sukkah that's higher than like 30 feet, then it's disqualified. And there's another law, 1 second. Excuse me, 1 moment. One second, excuse me, 1 moment. I just wanted to look something up. Let me just cancel this out 1 moment here. Okay, so there's all the laws, these little details of the laws are so tremendously important. More important than all the life of the world to come. Actual deed. V'yesh mitzvahs, we can find a reason. Some of the commandments, some of these details have reasons to them. Like it says that the blue of the tzitzis, we don't have, most people say we don't have this blue anymore. But anyway, the blue of the tzitzis is similar to the sea, and the sea is similar to the heaven. And a sukkah, there's a reason why it can't be higher than 20 amas, higher than 30 feet. it's no good because you have to know you're sitting in a sukkah. Look to know. That's the Mishnah. But the Breita who prat, these are all the little details. The Ba'era Mishnah to explain the Mishnah and all of the details. For instance, Sukkah Ganbach Rakvash. This is initials. Sukkah, it's Goyim, Nashim, Behemot, Kutim. A sukkah which is built by a non-Jew, by a woman. A sukkah which is built for how do you say, for the shepherd. It's watching behemoth animals, and a kuti. Kuti is a certain type of people that lived in Israel that they weren't really Jews. And I'm sorry, Bach means it's a building that was made to keep the animals in. And if it was a building for the shepherds, kuf and kayetzim, and the harvesters, and there was temporary people, a burganin and a shomrim. Anyway, these are different type of people that if they make a mitzvah, if the sukkah is made and by any of these people, it's no good. She'en tam, sometimes there's no reason for it. V'nira b'chush, we can see clearly, shehula ma'ila mi'aseichel. We can see that there's a lot of commandments which don't make any sense. That's what it means, in b'chalal, that all these details were found, elamasha b'frat, they were found in the, all these details, they were found in the generality. In other words, all the details were found in the seed. And also even more, the other way around, all the details are everything that was in the seed. She'ein b'mishnah, there's not anything in the Mishnah more than what is revealed in the Breita, in the explanation. Mashalon itgala time on things that which are no reason means that it was just very high. Hitami mitzvahs, because the reason for the commandments is not revealed to us. A lot of the things of the commandments, and in fact, when it comes right down to it, none of the commandments we can really understand, because why should God care if you put a box on your head and a box on your arm, and the letters have to be exactly right in these boxes? There has to be 4 paragraphs. Why would God, who creates the angels, why would he care about a thing like that? Doesn't make any sense, right? But the fact is, that's exactly the point. This is godly. It's not yours. It belongs to God. God decided it. You didn't decide it. This is godliness in the world. So some things we can sort of understand, but most things we cannot understand. And the essence of the depth of it, we can't really understand anything. But when Mashiach comes, if God so desires, Yidgala will be revealed. That's what we had in the first Maimer. Yidgala lo taima the base resina. That's what it means that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he would dorish Tami Dekra. He would learn the reasons, try to find the reasons for every commandment. Shadorish Shema. Shadorish, that he learned, Shema Shenemar, that what it says in the sentence, Tam Shel Davar, that what it says in the Torah, a reason for something. Lo Zehu Ikar, this is not the main reason. El Sheish Tam B'Zeh Gavoah, there's a higher reason. L'mayla miyatam. For instance, the 10 Commandments, it says, honor your mother and father in order that you will have long life in the land that God gave you. That's it, right? That's the reason. It says, if you do my statutes, then I'm going to give you rain, I'm going to give you the oil, I'm going to give you wine, right? And that's the reward. There must be something deeper here. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said that everything in the Torah, even the things that are explained, they have a deeper reason to them. Right? Like we said, a sukkah can't be too high because you won't know that you're sitting in a sukkah. It says that's external, but there's something much deeper than that. Nimsa comes out that in the commandments, she'ein masik, that we don't understand the reason, this is really higher because we know that we can't understand. It's showing us that it's above our understanding. The commandments where we sort of do understand the reason, so we can fool ourselves to think that we understand. That a person does understand the reasons for the commandments. It's only the backside, the outside. Not like the people think. The main thing is your heart. That you get a big pleasure. The ovid bit lavus, and that you have love of God and fear of God. It's not so. Rak ikaru hamaisa. The main thing is the deed. Even if without pleasure, and even without understanding, and that you have a pleasure and that you have intention, kavana. This is only just helps you. It's like wings that help the bird to fly. But a bird without wings is still kosher. And the Tanya explained. Okay, so what did we explain? We're going to have to go back to this tomorrow and finish it, God willing. So what did the Rebbe explain over here? Very, very basic essence of Judaism. That the whole essence of Judaism is for deed. There was a person in Judaism, I don't want to say his name, but he wouldn't mind. I mean, he was, very proud of this. That he had been a religious Jew. He was in the Chabad. And he was a genius. The man was a pure genius. And he used to be one of the main, anyway, he was a genius. And for some reason or another, they said he took LSD or something, whatever it was. And he still remained a genius. And he could explain all these wonderful ideas in Chassidut and a tremendously deep person, but he didn't do the commandments. He said we're not talking about these people like Martin Buber and these other people, that they're just, they're just big fakes. They're just tremendous, We're talking about this guy. He was a genuine person, and he really, he was a really genuine person, nice person, and he was truly sincere. And he said, I saw him speak. And he said, the main thing is just your feeling, you have emotions. And he really, when he explained what he was emotional about, you could see that he was really, involved in the greatness of God and the wonder of God and the depth of God. And so said the Rebbe, it's a good point. These things are really very high, but the deeds are the main thing. The deeds are the main thing. Till you can get to the point, says there was a person called Yerovam ben Nevat. He was like, he said he sinned and he made everybody else sin. And that he was a genius. And when he learned the Torah, there was fire surrounding him and everything like that. And finally, he just went off his rocker to the point where he made idols. He made golden calves, and everybody bowed down to the golden calves. But he figured the deed is not the main thing. The main thing is your intention. That's sort of, in a smaller way, the big mistake of Reform Judaism, whatever they call it, and conservative Judaism. The Rebbe said many times, there's only one Judaism. You can't have different. Judaism is the commandments. Doing the commandments. That's the essence of Judaism. If you don't have the Torah, of course, you don't know what commandments to do. But the main thing is to do the commandments and to do all the commandments. And the feelings and the love that you have, that's the like wings to the commandments. It makes them more personal, human, emotional, genuine, complete, wholesome. That's the idea of the yeshivas of Chabad. Tomchei Tamimim. Tamimim means that you do the commandments and you do Judaism in a wholesome way with all of your heart. But the fact of the matter is that that's not essential. The essential thing is the deed. So here the Rebbe is trying to say the lower that the Torah comes, the more details it comes, the higher is the source. Because finally, in the last deed, that's what gives God pleasure. Reach nichoach, nachat ruach, she'amarti v'naseh ratzoni, says, God says, I get pleasure when my will is done. Okay, we're going to talk about this, God willing, tomorrow. Pretty interesting, if you ask me. But now let's learn something which is no less interesting, and that is the Sikha of the Rebbe in Devar Malchut. So let's go.